industries where you have a really broad competitive set and a really broad customer set. And customers are very responsive to elasticities in that intense competitive environment. In terms of industries, most retailers fall into that type of game, and also CPG companies. So, really, industries where there's a lot of different players and they're competing for a wide range of customers. And then those customers both mostly have a pretty uniform experience of the product. So, you're not necessarily having a very custom tailored offer to each customer. So, it's a pretty exciting time to be playing this game because you can actually really make smart, informed analytical choices that you couldn't make before. I've been working in pricing for over 15 years, but now the data science has advanced so far that companies can actually really measure all of the price changes they've made over history and really understand what the elasticities of their business are in a really robust way by looking at those price changes over time. And the models are sophisticated enough to take in all kinds of interesting sources of data. And so bringing in all of those other signals lets you really tease out from a very noisy picture what is really being driven by a price change. And that wasn't possible even 5 years ago. So when we think about what pricing models and strategies work well in the uniform game, again, this is a super competitive environment, and it's an environment where elasticity is really important. Really robust price elasticity models are critical. Really understanding how you make a profit and understanding that in a robust way that goes beyond typical gross margin calculations that companies do. You make different pricing decisions when you really understand what your profitability equation is like. And so in a competitive environment like this, you have to be able to dynamically respond to that and respond to that differently by channel and by location that you're serving. And then you have to respond to that in a way that recognizes the game theory of what happens if you move and then someone else moves, and how do those different moves happen relative to each other. Companies face a lot of challenges when playing the uniform game. First of all, it's a big data challenge. Companies also have a challenge of bringing together the art and the science. So a lot of what you can measure and a lot of the cool and advanced sophisticated models get into how customers will respond tomorrow. But they really do need to think about how customers will make decisions 6 months, 12 months from now, and you're protecting that relationship so that you drive long-term profitable growth. I think it's really tempting to think that only really big companies can play this because you have to build super fancy data science models. I just helped a smaller private equity owned client think through how they could play this uniform game really well and how they could have a scrappy version of the best in class analytics that some of the big companies have and how they could use them in tools that are simple. It's not as dynamic and cool as something that some of my bigger clients would build that's reacting in real time and makes price moves every day and sometimes even more frequently online. So I think there's an answer for how to play this game for companies of all sizes. Companies can maintain a competitive advantage in a uniform game by having real capabilities that they own and that they're continuously improving. So it's very critical that as you're thinking about how you're going to make pricing decisions going forward, you're thinking about how you build capabilities within your organization. So if you think this is something that you build a really cool model and a really cool set of software and this is the answer, that's not the end of the story. For it to be a competitive advantage, all of the thought that goes into that model has to be embedded in your entire organization and how they think about pricing. So if you're a retailer, your merchants need to be very thoughtful about how they're designing product, and you need to have a process that makes sure that your merchants are thinking that way and continuously on top of what customers will pay for. And no tool or software will do that. But it's equally critical to invest in the people and the processes and the strategy that wraps around that and the muscle and creative energy that's required to keep that competitive advantage if you want to continue to win in the marketplace.